What's up, Team Tobias? What's up, Akron, Ohio? I do Ohio a lot.
You do
Um,
Ohio a lot.
I know. I don't know why.
Have you even been to Ohio?
Maybe an airport? No, I don't even think an airport. It's probably my fantasy place to go, Akron, Ohio. Like, oh, people in like foreign countries dream of New York. I dream of Akron, Ohio.
I mean, it is a common dream to go to Akron, Ohio. So I mean, I can feel that. So maybe there's like a writing conference out there that's listening in and they will
Oh,
invite you to go
please.
enjoy Akron, Ohio.
Please, but I'm an elitist, so you're gonna have to pay.
Oh, I
And
mean,
I don't want to have to pay for hotels. I need to be flown out and I need to be put up.
yeah, you need to be wined and dined.
Yes, but I believe I'm worth it. I value my time and my beauty and my excellence.
I mean, it's an investment for them to have you
Yeah,
there, you
absolutely.
know? So there you
If you
go.
want, you get what you pay for. You pick fruit, you stick with fruit. These are universal laws.
Absolutely. So, hey, Akron folks, you want Lane to come out and enjoy your wonderful city as he so desperately wants to?
Yes,
Let us know. Okay.
let us know. Anyway, this is Quelling Your Query Conundrums with me, Lane Haymont, and Anne Rose, whose show it actually is. So, Anne, take us away.
It's our show, Lane. Like, there
You,
would be no quelling your query conundrums
that's
without.
absolutely not true. There would be no Quelling Your Query Conundrums without you. It would
I mean,
be me mumbling to myself.
yeah, I'm same though. It would just be
No.
me talking to myself if I
You
was
would
here
be
by
talking
myself.
to the screen. I would be talking to, I don't know, my phone.
Well, I feel like this is much more enjoyable. So
Yes.
I think listeners, tell us, do you enjoy whatever we got going on here? Let us know. Leave us a comment. We'd love to get comments. Do we ever get comments? Does anyone
We
leave us
do.
comments?
We do. I just happen not to pass them along because I don't know. I just don't. I probably should.
You probably should. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would
Okay. Yeah.
I would love to know what these comments
I
are.
will. They're usually deaf to lame, but I'll. If you want to see it, I'll pass it along.
I would love for if you shared. Okay, so today we are, of course, diving into another query, right? And we've started this. Neither of us have read it in advance. We're just going to go in without having any first reads on this, and we're going to go from there. So, apologies. I will pronounce things wrong, probably. I am the most horrible out loud reader in the world. So, there you go. We're gonna go with it. It started with a note to us, Lane.
Did
So
it?
it did. It said any help on this query would be much appreciated.
Oh,
So
that's nice.
they said thank you so much for the wonderful feedback and that all of our AMAs that they find them very helpful. And so it was
Cool.
a nice little preemptive little note to us. I thought that was really nice at the beginning of this query letter. So
It
passing.
is.
See, I'm passing along the feedback.
You're gonna hate. You're gonna eat your words because I'm gonna be passing along 10 weeks of hate mail. I mean, they've all been very nice, but
I, at least this will be something. It'll be interesting.
yeah.
Okay, here we go. Dear agent, I am seeking representation for my novel title, an adult fantasy novel of 90,000 words with the premise of imagining a middle-aged Alice falling down the rabbit hole into another world. Personalization and comps. It's giving me in a little quote, so that's what it says. So I guess they're just going to dive right into the query. On an island off the Vancouver coast, a mother learns of her magical, cunning folk inheritance from her recently adopted rescue cat when it transforms into an immortal Fey imp. The imp reveals they must restore the world's protective barriers by returning a spell book to the city of Helligan in another world within 7 days, or the barrier will be broken forever. Predators are already here, sniffing out humans to snack on. Her son and the islanders are in imminent danger, threatened by the return of a resurrected witch and a homicidal witch finder general seeking vengeance on her cunning folk family. She is desperate to save her son and humanity before the dark magic addiction devours her soul. In Helligan, the cunning woman becomes immersed in the world of magical creatures, all with their own agenda. The Gentry Queen is intent on destroying the imp race and invading Earth. The imps are fighting back with the aid of a soldier and his horde. The Witchfinder wants to destroy all magic and himself in a suicidal bid for redemption. Interesting. In an attempt to return the spellbook and restore the world barriers, the cunning woman races across the city through catacombs of the dead, the Fey forest, and her nightmares made real to save the imps and her son. A budding romance forms with the soldier, but the cunning woman to but for the cunning woman to fall in love, she must fight the memories of her past traumatic relationship and guilt over killing a teenage bully in high school in a magical addicted high. Facing a deadly betrayal from an unexpected quarter, she has to make an impossible decision. Does she choose between saving her son by giving the spellbook to the Witchfinder, knowing he will use it to destroy Helligan, or holding on and trying to find a way to save everyone? Bio. And then she also has questions. Do you want me to read the questions?
What are the comps?
She didn't give any comps in this. She said personalization and comps in the quotes. So we
Oh,
did
okay.
want,
So you literally read it as it was. Okay.
yes,
So
that's what she said.
questions,
The
yes.
questions that were asked is, does the Alice analogy work? How is the query? I've called it adult fantasy, but should I be more specific? Urban fantasy, portal fantasy, contemporary fantasy. There's a lot more questions. Should we just do them one at a time, or should I read all the questions
Sure.
first?
Whichever you prefer. Follow your heart.
Okay, well, we'll read through them and then we'll kind of try to go through like what we usually do. Okay, so do you have any suggestions on on comparative book titles for my novel? So she's asking about comps. Just, or I guess they. I don't know who it is. My apologies. Because it doesn't have a central romance. Because it doesn't have a central romance plot, more a secondary romantic relationship forming. No naughty bits, a couple of kisses, but that's it. I've had trouble finding comps that aren't paranormal romances. What I've been told so far are too old. So I guess the comps that they had been using are Raymond E. Feist's Fairy Tale, The Others by Anne Bishop, Iona Andrews' Kate Daniels series, and then they say thank you. So that's the whole letter.
Okay.
So should we do what we normally do and kind of like go and break it down and then address the questions? Do you think that'd be best? I think that might be easiest.
Yes, I agree.
Let's stick with that. Okay, so first paragraph, dear agent, I'm seeking representation for my novel title, an adult fantasy novel at 90,000 words with the premise of imagining a middle-aged Alice falling down the rabbit hole into another world. So let's start there. This kind of goes with that question later, like, does the Alice thing work? And I don't know if it works as a hook here because it there has been a lot of Alice retellings. So I'm trying to understand like how this would be different, how using that how is using that a hook? I'm not quite seeing it. I think I want to know a little bit more for it to feel more hooking than just the idea of, like she said, it's a, or they said, I'm sorry, I keep saying I don't know. Anyway, like they said that it's a portal fantasy. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Agree and disagree. I agree because I don't think there is enough, and I disagree because I latched on to an older Alice and immediately thought Hook.
Okay, that's fair.
So I got it in my head, but I don't think it comes across if you weren't a lunatic like me.
Fair. So I think
So
maybe just tweaking it a little bit would be helpful. And I do enjoy the idea of a middle-aged Alice, but it has to be more than just falling down the rabbit hole. Like what specifically, because it's not a retelling of Alice, right? Like this isn't Alice. So I guess I want the what's unique about this particular one.
So it's not Alice. I thought it was a middle-aged Alice.
I think it's trying to say like it is kind of like it, but I don't think that's who it's supposed to be. I don't think this is like Alice as a middle-aged person, like later on, like Alice grew up and like she's going back to Neverland. I don't know. Wonderland.
Okay.
Wonderland? Alice in Wonderland.
Wonderland.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't think that's what this is. So I think it's just like an Alice-like character who falls down a rabbit hole.
I'm going to cut through the noise from the get-go and say I think there's too much here. Too much going on. I like the Witchfinder General. That's cool. I like imps. That's cool. I like the middle-aged Alice going back down the rabbit hole because it's hookish, as in Hook, the movie. That's cool. But then there's dead high school boys and evil witches and good witches, and the Witchfinder General who's evil is trying to kill everyone by redeeming himself. And there's that donkey running for presidency, and all this other stuff in there. That part's a joke, but you get my point.
I get your point. And I agree. I don't think we need to reread this one because there is just a lot of detail in here. I think that you're 100% right. Like this is giving us way too much. And we don't even know the character's name, right? Because she's just the cunning woman. And so
Oh,
I would this should really read like your back cover copy. So I would want to know who the main character is. What's her name? Like who is she? So remember, we're going to go back to the basics. Who is your main character? What do they want? There's a lot of stuff happening here, and I get that she ends up wanting to save people and do these things, but her as a character, like how does that anchor her into this plot? Right? Before this thing starts and before she finds out she is a immortal whatever, before she learns out she has magic, how did she not know she had magic all this time? I don't know. Um and you know, but what did she want before that? Like what is her character arc? Because what she wants before the journey starts should still somehow be hooked into this journey that she takes and ends up figuring out who she is at the end. Does that make sense?
yes. And now that you mentioned we don't know her name, that's probably why I latched on to Alice, because that's the only name we heard.
Correct. So yeah, I feel like the plot has taken over this query letter and we're not getting enough character in this query letter. So who is this character? Who is the main character? What does this main character want? What are their goals? What stands in their way and what happens if they fail? Like we have some of that in here, but it's not really we're not since we don't really understand who the character is, we don't really understand how these things are personal to the character, if that makes sense. Yeah. Did you feel me?
Yes?
Yes.
No. I just didn't know you wanted a yes.
I
Yeah,
just
and preach, and yes, you are right.
I I don't have to be right. I don't know. I'm just looking for
No,
some sort of
no, you are right. I
okay.
totally agree.
So I do think it sounds like a very interesting and complex story, which is awesome. So bravo, author, you've created a a very complex world. I just think dialing it back for this query letter would be really helpful. This is definitely one of those times where finding people who have never read the book before and just kind of handing over the letter, the meat part of the letter, which is what you provided us, just handing that over to them and saying, "Hey, does this make sense to you? Does this make you want to read this book?" Would be really helpful. Even if they're not authors, they'll be able to at least tell you, okay, yeah, I totally understand what this book is, or not. I think there's just a lot in here, and I think it's just way too much. Let me do a quick word count here on what this meat part of this query is.
I was going to ask, is this one page? Because it feels like more than one page.
I mean, technically, it's only 310 words for that little description, but it felt so heavy. Like it felt like way more than 300 words.
So that's more than one page, because a page is 250 words traditionally.
Well, that's 250 words double spaced. This is single spaced. Query letters are always single spaced. So
I disagree.
you don't think
250 words is a page. I don't care whether it's single space or double space. I know physically and all that jazz. But in my head, 250 words is a page. A page, a page, a page is a page.
Well, I'm going to agree to disagree with you on that one. So I think
Well,
300 words is fine for the description part of a query. But you are correct in the fact that once we get in the bio and the comp paragraph with all of that, this is going to be pushing that one page for sure.
I am going to disagree with you.
That's fine.
Good.
And that's why this works.
Yep.
So
There you
that
go.
is totally fine. Okay, so we'll go to the questions, which are, does the Alice analogy work? We kind of touched upon that. How is the query? We kind of touched upon that. We just think that maybe it's a little too heavy-handed. I would kind of dial it back just a little bit. Should you be more specific about the type of fantasy? I think just saying adult fantasy is fine. I mean, unless it is specifically urban fantasy, which it doesn't sound like. And I don't think it's contemporary fantasy because you're going to a separate world. So it's not really that. And we get the concept that it's some sort of portal or something. So I think just fantasy works. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I personally dislike the whole notion of portal fantasy um, because going through a portal to a different world shouldn't be a genre.
Yeah, it's not it'll all still sit in the fantasy section.
Yeah,
So
I
I
agree.
I think that it's fine. Now, I would have to do a lot more research about comp titles. So I don't really have any comp titles off the top of my head. I don't know if you have any suggestions on that right off the top of your head.
No, because I took the middle-aged Alice in the rabbit hole literal, so I was thinking Hook, but if that's not the case, I have no idea.
Got nothing. So
Nothing.
I don't think that it's important that it has a central romance. So when we think about comp titles, we want to think about books that this would sit alongside of, right? We don't want a direct comparison. We don't want to say book A is exactly like book B. We want to say book for the people who love to read book A, they will also love to read book B. And maybe here are some of the reasons, right? So don't worry so much about it being like a direct comparison, but more along the lines of what are comparable in the book. It has the romantic angle of X title. It has the portal fantasy of Y title. So those readers will also enjoy these aspects of my book. So don't get too hung up on like the direct, it has to be a direct comparison. Do you have any comp title tips?
No, I think you nailed it. Mine is much simpler. It's always A meets B plus a little of C.
That's another way to do it. So that's another great way to do it. And you can also, if it is an Alice, if this really is supposed to be Alice later on, maybe she forgot about her time in Wonderland. I don't know. Like you can always use that Alice reference too. Like this is Alice in Wonderland meets that, whatever it may be.
Hooked.
I don't think it's a hook. You keep going back to hook. Are you thinking
I want it to be hooked
because
because that's a great idea. Alice in Wonderland. Old woman's like, hey, I forgot who I am. Stumbles, falls down, sees all the kooky stuff, and is like, oh, I realize who I am.
there you go. If that's the book, Lane will take it. You can send it
Nope,
to
I'm
Lane.
not saying someone write that book and send it to me. I don't want to read that book, not my bag, but I think it's a cool idea.
Okay, there we go. Fair, fair. So author, there you go. I think that you have a lot of great stuff here, great complex story. It's probably a very interesting character. She seems to have a lot of depth and nuance to her. Great. We just are getting way too much in the query letter, so really dial it back a little bit just so we can understand again, who the main character is. What does she want? What stands in her way? What happens if she fails? So you have a lot of that kind of in here, but it's getting buried in the nitty-gritty of trying to give us all the details. We don't need all the details for this. So that's it.
Take us away, Anne.
Well, take us away. All right. So that's another episode here of Quelling Your Query Conundrums with me, Ann Rose, and Lane Haymont. So if you have a query that you are having conundrums about, go ahead and send it to the link below, and we will likely air it on one of our future episodes. Also, Lane will be now providing feedback from the comments that you leave. So go ahead and leave us a comment. Let us know what you think, feel. How did you think the query went? Do you have any suggestions or comp titles that you think would be a good match to this? Go ahead and leave them below. So thanks again, and we will, like, subscribe, and, I don't know, enjoy some air conditioning. It's too hot already, and it's not even summer. So that's what you got to do. Have a cold lemonade for us.